recorded live.
Greetings and a fine good morning from the southern coast of Oregon for another episode of Hour of Discernment on February 24th, 2016. This morning I have a special guest, and he's from Canada, and he's made a documentary on the globalized flat Earth, and he's been on here one other time. And one of the reasons that really struck me when Robbie was on last time in his documentary that he has, The Global Lie, it's the only one up on the internet that gives you the history of the Copernicus revolution, and it gives you the history and the root of evolution. And this, because Copernicus revolution caused Darwinianism. It was the birth of Darwinianism and the pseudosciences, and actually the birth of the new religion, and that is space science. And I call it space science. And with that, Robbie, welcome to the broadcast, and good morning.
Yeah, good morning to you, Walt. Thank you very much for having me on.
Well, I first of all, I want to my listeners have heard me. I've said this yesterday, but listen. What is the definition of the Copernicus revolution? This comes out of the encyclopedia. It's the dethronement of the Earth from the center of the universe caused profound shock. The dethronement of the Earth from the center of the universe caused profound shock. No longer could the Earth be considered the epitome of creation. The successful challenge to the entire system of ancient authority required a complete change in man's physiological conception of the universe. This is what is rightly termed the Copernicus revolution. And from a biblical viewpoint, Professor Hansen, he cuts through the verbiage, because I'm reading this out of The Earth is Not Moving. The Earth is Not Moving by Marshall Hall. And Professor Hansen cuts through the verbiage and says, the Copernicus revolution upon which modern everything rests in a revolution against the authority of the Bible. I mean, I think this is so important. The Copernicus revolution upon which modern everything rests is a revolution against the authority of the Bible. The debate was and still is over the Bible. The bottom line, either man's science is right or the Bible's right. And Robbie, when you put your documentary together, what made you put it at the head of the first part of your documentary? Your thoughts?
I think it's so important to address the lies that are in this world, and I think while many in the church clearly saw the lies of evolution with Darwin, it was like they were attacking the branches of a tree, but they weren't looking at the root. And I just look at, like, if you follow the chain back and you find out, well, where did evolution come from? Well, you get the Big Bang heliocentric universe. So you have to start questioning, you have to be critical of, just the models. And I think, so many of us have just taken for granted that, everything they've said that, up in the sky, our solar system, that this is indeed fact and this is true. This is, they say, scientifically proven. Yet you'll find that with a lot of research, I mean, these were theories that took hold mainly with, the Copernican, principle, and it spanned onward from there. But I think that it's very, very important. And I mean, there's lots of verses in the Bible, and people will choose to say, well, maybe those are allegory, and maybe, we shouldn't take those literal and stuff. But I think that Joshua 10:12-13 is incredibly important for anybody that's seriously looking at the Bible. And when you understand that it's very clear in Joshua's long day that, he commands the sun and the moon to stand still. He doesn't command the earth, to stand still. And I mean, all throughout the Bible, it talks about that the earth is fixed, it's immovable, It does not move. I mean, there are so many references talking that the Earth just doesn't move. And I mean, in the documentary from Copernicus, even with Nietzsche's, quote saying that, when we unchain the Earth from the sun is when we really killed God. And I think that when you understand that if we're just a speck, flying around endless galaxies in the solar system, somewhere in the Milky Galaxy, I mean, it basically makes us insignificant. And I think that's the biggest thing that science, when they find, in all of their observations and tests, they do not want to admit that we're special, that we are geocentric. So, with the Satan and his lies, wanting to discredit the Bible, we have just been fed, what they've said is this truth, and we've taken it, but what it's done is it's completely gone against the Bible. So therefore, most people that are looking to the Bible, they start questioning their faith. They say, well, okay, if the Bible was wrong here because the men really didn't know what was going on, well, maybe they were wrong about other things. So the infallibility, with the Bible completely starts, tearing apart. And again, this is Satan's agenda, is to destroy the foundations of the Bible, of the Word of God. And that's why this topic is so important.
Well, also, in a past broadcast, somebody in the texted in that. How do you answer this and approach this when somebody says, Joshua, that was just a fable?
When they're saying it's a fable, well, I mean, it's very, very clear. I mean, how can it be a fable when it actually is not only talking about two specific places, Ajalon, it's talking about Gibeon. And what's really interesting is it actually says that the sun, when the sun and the moon stood still, they stood over certain places, which would give you the understanding that these are above us, that they are straight above us. Again, this is kind of the debate, is whether are you going to take the Bible, as poetry or figuratively, or are you going to take it as the literal Word of God, that these are actual places? I mean, some people will come and critique, different times and people in the Bible. For example, they will bring up Adam and Eve, or they'll bring up Noah, or they'll bring up, but you have to understand that if you're going to basically say that you're a Christian and you're a follower of Jesus Christ, Jesus himself talked about these people as literal people. He talked about places as these were actual places. So I think that we have to seriously look at that of, the Messiah, Jesus Christ, talking specifically about these. I mean, Jonah, some people say that that's silly. I mean, how could a large fish, swallow a man? But Jesus says, as Jonah was 3 days in the belly of a big fish, so will the Son of Man be 3 days in the ground. So again, he's talking as these are literal, specific, real events that took place. And these are not, allegory or poetry or, figurative.
Well, I think you answered that correctly, but I just want to add a little bit to it. I think because of all the seminaries and Bible colleges in the academic world, in the pressure of the academic world, and the fact that the Copernicus revolution took the credibility away from the Bible, that I really feel when they come at you with this, they really, and I mean, I'll just be point blank, like Kent Hovind, you just point blank has to jump over that, because it's in there 67 times about motion and geocentric. And the truth of it is, they're not believing the Bible. That's
correct.
The bottom line.
Yeah.
And and so what I'd like to have you do is the document. Your video was up to almost 100,000. And then you had to take it down. Could you tell us a little bit more about the documentary, the principle?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I had used a 1 minute clip in there because I guess it was in their documentary. They really exposed the lies of Copernican, as well as everything that followed kind of after the Copernican principle. But anyways, I had used a minute clip from there. Well, they were pretty upset about it because one of their things was they didn't want to be linked with flat Earth at all. And so they were saying, listen, we're geocentric. And where the principles, where they stand with the producers, with the studio, basically where their stance is that we are on a ball, but we are stationary, we don't move, and that everything moves around us. And their film is absolutely extraordinary, and I would recommend it to anyone because it is just loaded, not just with geocentric scientists, but they have a lot of secular scientists admitting that they are lying, admitting they have no clue when it comes to cosmology. There's a quote in the film saying that usually they're pretty upset if they're off by a factor of 2 to 10. Well, they basically admit that they're off by a factor of 1 with 120 zeros after. So to the power of 120 is how far they're off in cosmology. That's why, for the most part, I think it represents in real kind of scientific discovery or material, it's like 6%. All of the rest, they fill it up with dark matter, dark energy, stuff that's imaginary, stuff that's never been tested, quantified. No one's ever been able to do an experiment. No one's ever seen it. And yet they throw this into the series to make it work, because if they don't, it keeps drawing them back to a geocentric universe. So the principal had taken down the film. YouTube had kind of removed it, the global lie, from YouTube for a while, and I got in discussion with them and sent them a lengthy email. And Rick Delano, the president, he had been really moved by the email, so he called me up personally and said, look, we've been, thinking about this, and, there is a way that we can work together as long as we are not associated with the flat Earth theory. We think it's ridiculous. We don't believe in it. What we are is geocentric. But both of us, in fighting the Copernican, revolution, understand the importance of kind of joining forces and getting as much material out for people to see, even with different vantage points, to understand that we have been lied to when it comes to the heliocentric universe. I mean, this clearly are lies. And I think the principal does an excellent job illustrating how deep this lie goes, but exactly how it all came about. And then when you have, modern day physicists and scientists basically admitting that there's huge, huge problems, and that a lot of the things they're pointing to a very special, unique Earth placed at the center of everything. And while they don't want to admit that, that's why they go further and further away from it, because at this point, there's too much at stake. I mean, it's in all the textbooks. I mean, think of how many jobs would be lost. I mean, really, you're starting from scratch when you understand that everything that we've been taught is a lie.
Well said, Robbie. And since you have a media background, and so you are familiar with Photoshop and different things. And let's talk about, I don't even like to call myself a flat earther, but let's look at some of the like the curvature of the Earth.
Sure.
Let's look, and you tell me they're using their figures and their numbers. The figures don't figure, and you can't see and we cannot see the curvature that with the dimensions of the Earth that they give us. Would you comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there are experiments being done all over the world, and that's the one beautiful thing about whether it's flat Earth theory, geocentrism, all these type of things. We're applying the real scientific method. And again, this is about testing something, being something that can be repeated, it can be observed. This is what real science is. And for the longest time, questions were all part of science. But basically science has become scientism, a religion, a belief system where it can't be questioned. It's told, no, the debate's over. The science is settled, they'll always say. But it's not settled. And again, we're asking the questions, we're applying the scientific method, we're doing these experimentations. But based on their math, we have huge, huge problems. I mean, there's tests being conducted all over the world right now to basically detect the curvature of the Earth, through a scientific experiment. So there are all of these tests being done, and no one has been able to actually measure the curve of the Earth anywhere. And a lot of people say, wow, we're, so big. But again, with their calculations, not ours, with theirs, I think it works out to 8 inches per mile squared. But what happens, just to give you an idea, at about 12 miles, you're looking at 80 feet below the curvature of the Earth. Well, people are clearly seeing things that they should not be able to be seen. We're actually just about to be conducting an experiment around 12 miles over a frozen lake, because what people understand and know is that water always finds its level. And this is where all these experiments are being done, is across water, because water is flat. We know that. I mean, no one's ever seen curved like oceans or curved lakes. It is flat. So all these experiments are being done, and time again, we have yet to find any curvature. I mean, you get into problems. Now, they could come back and say, well, we were wrong. It wasn't 25,000 miles in circumference. It's actually 250,000 miles in circumference. The only problem there is they've shown us all the pictures. They've already put all this data as settled science. There is no turning back. They have to be stuck with their figures at 25,000 miles in circumference. The only problem there is with all the AutoCAD 3D models, all the engineers that are working on this, when they simulate it, the one thing that's really, really hard to question is no matter how high in altitude you go, the horizon always stays at eye level. So if we were on a ball of 25,000 miles in circumference, the further you went up in altitude, your horizon would start dropping. I mean, they've simulated this, they put this into all sorts of, applications. Well, I mean, we can't get a rocket and go up to space, but what we can do is get a military-grade weather balloon and go up to about 110 to 130,000 feet. Well, when people are going up without a GoPro lens or a fisheye lens, if they're using a straight prime, straight lens, it is flat as flat can be. People are taking pictures out of airplanes now, bringing them back into Photoshop with rulers. They're flat. And, people will say, well, I was up in a plane. I saw the curve. Did you? Go up in a plane again and look for it and see what happens. It's the most interesting thing that when you actually start looking for it, you can't find it. And you can verify it with a ruler. Take a picture, anybody, and I challenge anybody to go up, take that picture, put a ruler, print it out, take a ruler, and you tell me if you can find the curve. So it's very, very interesting that no experiment that we can do, that we can find, can determine the curvature of the Earth.
Well, and as a pilot, I said this the other day, there's not a pilot alive that has seen the curvature of the Earth. And you covered that people have programmed so much that we've been programmed from the cradle of a ball. And the truth of it is, nobody has ever seen the blue ball. Now, people want to attack you because you're talking about flat Earth, but let's just talk about what we can see. There's no one that's ever seen the blue ball. And then you said another thing here. You talked about marketing. It's in marketing. In other words, if they omitted this, they would have to go change all the textbooks.
Yeah.
And I've covered this about, people that write books a lot of time, they know how to market. And it's the same way with Kent Hovind. When he was in prison, he wrote some 60 books. He wrote a new book. And if he came out and was biblical about it, it's all about marketing. His book sales would go down. But think of what Robbie just said. They have to change all the textbooks. And like I've said in past broadcasts, we are in an academic inquisition because you're not able to question. And so, the next thing I'd like to get into is like I said, I don't come out and say I'm a flat earther.
Mm-hmm.
But some of these people that are so enamored with a ball, they can't even imagine that they could have been lied to.
Mm-hmm.
And so the one thing that the flat earth movement has done, it has uncovered NASA. It is and uncovered, and when we know the religion of NASA, the religion of NASA is Freemasonry. The Apollo program, they were all Masons that landed on the moon. Fred Kleineck, he's the head commander there in Washington D.C. of the main lodge there now, but he was a director of NASA during the Apollo program. And the reason why, Robbie, that I stick, and I've been, people say, well, Walt, you're kind of running this heliocentric into the ground. Well, no, if you don't understand heliocentric, you cannot understand false religion. Because the Roman Catholic Church, the Freemasons, the Mormons, the Seventh-day Adventists, they have to have heliocentric. Freemasonry will not work with a geocentric worldview. And so let's just talk a little bit about, to me, this is what NASA is. After I sit back and look at from Galileo to Newton to Einstein to Sagan, it was NASA that put the final nail into the coffin when they showed us a ball Earth. So how did why did they go to the moon? What was the main purpose of the moon shot? The main purpose of them was to verify that we're heliocentric and to show us one picture of the ball coming back. On the seventh trip coming back, they showed us a picture, and I know you've done some research. Could you tell us a little bit about the graphics that NASA's using, Robbie?
Yeah, like I said, like the famous blue marble shot that's in every, textbook, and it was done, like you had said, Walt, on the very last mission. You'd think that, going up to the moon that many times, you'd be taking, 1,000 pictures of the Earth. Well, anyways, for whatever reason, they forgot to take a picture, and then on the way back on the last mission, hey, we should take a picture of the Earth. But anyways, they take a picture of that, the famous 1972 blue marble shot. And then what was really interesting is, I think it was July of 2015, they admitted, and anyone can look this up, that it had been 43 years since they had taken a photo of the Earth. They talk about how tough it is to take a photo of the Earth. They had to get 1 million miles away. But, well, wait a minute. They say that the moon is 240,000 miles away. But apparently, in 2015, they have to go 1 million miles away to get a shot of the Earth, which is very, very suspicious. But nonetheless, they released a photo. Well, if you look at the photo and you turn the photo upside down, it clearly has sex written in the clouds. They're mocking us. With their picture of Pluto, there's actually a transparency of actual Pluto, the Disney Pluto dog. You can actually overlap it. It's like exact. It's actually really surprising, the stuff that they release, and people just, eat it up and say, well, it's NASA. And unfortunately, NASA, and even the whole education system, the science system, they've become like our high priests. They've become, the scholars, the people that, we listen to. We don't question because they've got all the tools. They've got all the degrees. And unfortunately, this is kind of the system that Satan has set up in the whole world. And I think for a lot of listeners, and then we're getting into flat earth theory, this might be so far out there. And I understand, for years, I thought it was crazy too. But let's just stick with the heliocentric model, because I think it's very important. If NASA could have lied to us, let's just say, about missions. Maybe you don't believe they landed on the moon. Maybe you do. But again, if you look into NASA and you find out there's an agenda and you see, all these things going on, just ask yourself the question, read the Bible and look at what they've taught us. Could it be possible that we have been lied to? Could it be possible that the Earth is special, that it is, stationary, that we are in a geocentric universe? Is this possible? And I think it's very important, and I think breaking this paradigm down is important on anyone's quest for truth, is at least finding out, is science lying to us? when it comes to astrophysics, when it comes to what they're saying. You know, I mean, they're taking supposed pictures from the rover from Mars, and they're beaming back pictures 140 million miles away. I mean, what kind of Wi-Fi, connection is this? And some people say, well, they've got good technology and stuff. But, start using your head, start looking at the claims and what they're saying, and ask yourself the question. I mean, if we went so easily to the moon, how come no other country has a base up there? How come, the USA doesn't have a base up there? How come they don't have a camera with an HD live feed that all of us can watch the spinning ball? But what you're going to find is if you look around, there is no video footage of the spinning ball anywhere in existence. The only thing that exists is a time-lapse, 25-hour time-lapse of the Earth spinning. It's not even spinning because it's a time-lapse. But in that 25 hours, the clouds never change within 25 hours. I mean, everyone knows that they point their camera up in the sky, even for 1 hour. Start shooting for 1 hour, stop, and then fast forward through it. You will see clouds moving all over the place. Yet this time lapse that they have that is, out there, that's it. And you have to start asking. I mean, we're 2016, and yet we have no video footage of the blue marble spinning anywhere in existence. So I think that's something that people need to be critical of as NASA is, just understand that there are lies in this world, and some of them are so big that it's hard for us to grasp. But if anything, start looking at the claims, find out, research the history of the people that really were going against the Bible, really going against the church, and trying to completely kill God, basically. They were trying to actually create a existence, a reality that wouldn't need God. And that's how we get, evolution. That's how the entire Big Bang. I mean, their story, if you think that what we're talking about right now is crazy, think of what they think or what they say is fact, that nothing exploded and created everything. They literally say that all the elements, that all the periodic table of elements, everything in reality, at one point in the universe, there was nothing. And nothing created everything. So while they're saying that nothing created everything, we're saying God. So again, it's kind of like, is it so crazy to start thinking of these things when they're actually telling everyone that nothing created space, time, and everything?
Well, Robbie, and another thing is we're talking about it. We're questioning. And see, that is not, this is the thing. People say, well, Walt, you've stuck on this heliocentric, geocentric too long. It's time for you to move on. No. If we quit talking about it, I have brothers in Christ and friends, and I don't bring this up to put them down, because I came across it in 1996, but I didn't know what the word heliocentric was or geocentric. In 1996, I found out that there was two theories. One, we went around the sun, and one, we were stationary. But I have friends, that are well-read, have more, their bulb is brighter than Walt's, and they didn't hear about heliocentric, geocentric until Walt started talking about it. So it is important that we talk about it. And Robbie said, it's been 43 years since we've had a picture of the blue ball. The reason why it's been 43 years, there's not a man alive, including every one of those Masonic astronauts, that have ever seen the blue ball. Now, you can still believe in the blue ball, but I've been actually literally thrown under the bus and disfellowshipped because I mention and want to talk about the geocentric. And like Robbie said, they're mocking us. They're mocking us. And I'd like to just everybody stop and think about 7 trips to the moon. And you see, as time goes on, I mean, I've been doubting the moonshot for years. But I was, when they went to the moon, I was a newspaper distributor. And everybody was in the house watching the TV. And the only thing I would say to people when they'd say, "Well, Walt, I'd say, how do you know they went to the moon?" And they'd scratch their head and they said, "Well, we seen it on TV." Well, I said, do you believe everything you see on TV? You see, heliocentric, geocentric is really important. I mean, they, like Nietzsche said, we have killed God. And that's what we see on our culture today. And how did they do it? They didn't do it overnight. They didn't get this foothold overnight. And evolution is absolutely absurd. And we have creation ministries that are focused on evolution and dispelling evolution. And all of these ministries are heliocentric. Heliocentric is important. And because why is because these ministers have been to a seminary and they have been from a and maybe I'd like to have you talk about this a little bit. I mean, let's just Robbie, in other words, why is it? I mean, when, like you said on the last broadcast when I had you on, you said we have the world has a heliocentric worldview. Whether they're reading a book, they can't even pronounce heliocentric, but they're heliocentric. And in your words, Robbie, you expound on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we're all, if you think about it, we're coming to the text, we're reading the Bible with this scientific worldview that's been created by, the Copernican heliocentric model. I mean, everything from the movies that are out in Hollywood to just the education centers as we are brought up, it's unfortunate, but we're taught this. I mean, people hang little solar systems in babies' cribs. I mean, it's one of the first things that a baby sees. I mean, it's one of the things that a child learns is that we are on a ball. We show them, we spin it, it's fun. We're here, and there's Africa, and there's, Asia. So it's something that children don't even have the capacity to even question. Once we get to an age where we can actually question these things, there is no question because it's fact. It is what it is. So there are no questions. So it is a form of indoctrination. There's a reason why there's a globe in every kindergarten or grade 1 class. I mean, this is not by accident. I mean, there is something going on. There is an agenda, and it is incredibly important when you understand that everyone is coming to the text. Everyone is understanding their world from what has been proposed. But here's the interesting thing, that when you actually look into it, these are theories. These are not facts. These are not scientific verified, experiments that have been done to get these conclusions. These are still theories, just like the theory of relativity, just like the theory of evolution, just like the theory of gravity. Who in the right mind would ever question gravity? And when I looked into gravity, I was appalled. I was saddened. I was shocked at what I found because, again, it's never been quantified. It's never been tested. It's never been seen. And then all of a sudden, what was it, a few weeks ago, they've detected, NASA releases a brand new announcement. They've detected gravitational waves. And where did they detect them? They detected them like 31 billion light years away. And get this, 31 billion years ago. They actually went into the past to detect them. I mean, think of this logically. How do you test or see something that happened 31 billion years ago in the past? Yet we're reading these things and we're applauding and we're saying, wonderful NASA, and look at this, isn't this wonderful? Isn't God's creation amazing? It's so huge. And then that's the thing that you mentioned with the creation ministries, focusing on evolution. Here's the deal. How does, in most people's minds, how does the solar system affect us? I mean, evolution affects us because it takes out our dignity. We evolved from apes, or actually, if you want to get into it, what they teach is it rained on rocks for millions of years, and that's what, produced us. So really, if you want to go back on the evolutionary model, we literally evolved from rocks. And if you want to go further back from the Big Bang, we're all stardust. Literally, you have Neil deGrasse Tyson saying that we're all stardust. We're all part of the universe. We're all part of this cosmic explosion. So I think for most people, how does the solar system affect, at first glance, really you think about it, and it wasn't really something that was even a target. It was very deceitful in the sense that really there was never a target on it. But now with all the research and all the understanding, researching into the history, with my documentary, The Global Lie, even with my channel that I created on YouTube, Celebrate Truth, was to basically, look, we're going to expose the lies of the world, and we're going to celebrate truth. And I mean, who is the author of truth? Jesus. John 14:6. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So God wants truth to be very important pursuit for all people that pursue him. It says true worshipers will worship me in spirit and in truth. Truth is very important. And a lot of people say, hey, what does this matter? I mean, this conversation we're having, who cares? Truth matters. And again, that's what our pursuit is. And again, you can be skeptical, you can question this, but why don't you just dig into it a little bit and find out the agendas? Find out how much these people hated God. Find out how much they hated the Bible and they wanted to discredit it. I mean, you're not even talking Copernicus. You're talking Kepler. You're talking Newton. You're talking, even right to Darwin. All of the sciences that we see today all came from the enlightenment of the Copernican revolution that happened with his amazing discovery that no, the sun, stays still. And we all, revolve around the sun. But if you actually go back in history, you've got Rome, you've got Greece, you've got Egypt. Sun was always the focal point. I mean, like it says in Ecclesiastes, nothing new happens under the sun. But if you understand that we are in a modern day scientific sun worship paradigm, and I'm not saying that any one of your listeners that are believing in the heliocentric model, are sun worshipers or they're pagan. Not at all. But what I'm saying is I have to understand that Lucifer is all about creating what he's created all throughout time. And he's always been focusing on people, to basically put the sun as the center point, put it up on a mantle. We might not have a sun sitting in our home and on the mantle, or we've got an altar set up or anything like this. But understand that everything we've been taught, even to the stars, what are we told about the stars? All the stars are suns. I mean, they're actually even bigger suns than our sun. Well, I'm sorry, the Bible's very clear. It says God created a sun, a moon, and he created stars. And what were they? They were lights. Everything that we see in the sky are lights. Now, you could believe NASA, and they say it's terra firma, that we could land on these things and play golf and drive around rovers. Or you can believe the Word of God in what God has to say. And what were they created for? They were created for times and seasons. So when they're talking about stars that we can't see that are 10 trillion light years away, what purpose does that serve in giving us times and seasons? He said everything that was created in the sky was for us to see. So the stuff that we can't even see with our optics, that would make no sense, biblically speaking. But again, this is an assault on the Bible. This is an assault on God. And again, what's so devastating about the heliocentric model is it creates everything. You don't even have evolution without the heliocentric model. Understand this, that once you get placed into a geocentric universe, however you define that, if you want to argue about the shape of the earth, fine. But for now, let's focus on the two models. There is no evolution in geocentric model. Everything in the heliocentric, they needed to detach the earth. They needed to make the earth move, because once it moves, it's insignificant. It's like everything else that we see in the sky moving. But in fact, the Bible does teach very clearly the earth doesn't move. What does move is everything that we see in the sky.
Something that just struck me as you said, there would be no evolution. I bought this book, that The Earth is Not Moving by Marshall Hall. I've had it for about 5 years, and I've just put it off. I've never really devoured it. But what you said about there'd be no evolution, you see, they had to have heliocentric to get their evolution. And what is a heliocentric mind? How does it think? How does it work? Well, let's talk about Walt Stickel, myself. I was raised a Lutheran, and I did a lot of hiking. I used to hike into the Cascade Mountains, and I never forget every time that I would be on a clear night, especially when you're in the mountains with no light, problems from the light from the cities. I would look up into those skies, and I would, with my heliocentric mind, I'd look up there, and it doesn't end. And I'd look up there, and all of a sudden my brain would go, like I always say, beep, 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 beep. It would overload. It would overload because in other words, there's no end. There's no end. And I knew we were going around the sun. That's what I've been told. But and then the moon. Just night before last, we had a full moon, and it was pretty full last night too. You go out there by yourself on a clear night, and you look at that moon by yourself. Clear your mind, and you try to convince yourself that that's a reflection from the sun. I mean, last night, you could read a newspaper out here. I mean, and this has been hid from us because, like you say, see, I don't like to use the word flat earth because people, they just freeze up. They just freeze up. All their thinking comes to and they start repelling you. But when you see for yourself, you're seeing how grand God's creation is, and how little that you do know. The more you know, the less you know, and the grander God becomes. But when you destroy it with heliocentric, and like I said, I keep repeating myself because it completely has devoured the academic world. They don't even bring it up for debate. But you know something, Robbie, I have to, when you think about, and another thing, I wanted to make one other comment is, now this is biblical, okay? God created the firmament, and inside the firmament, he put the moon and the sun. And how has this changed since I understand geocentric in the Bible and how Job describes it? How has this changed my view? Well, now I look up into the sky at night and I'm seeing the top of the dome. I'm realizing that everything that I see is inside the dome. Now, it's how big, I can't tell you how, God created it. It's like the hummingbird. I can't tell you. I can see the hummingbird, but I can't tell you. But I look up, and then yesterday when I look up into the sky and I see a perfectly blue sky, I understand that that's the top of the dome. I had a friend call up, and I can't say this to everybody, but she's a Christian, and she said, how's your day going? And I said, great, I can see the top of the dome. Why is that? How many people have asked themselves, why is the sky blue? Your comment, Robbie?
Yeah, I was actually talking to someone just the other day on that, and actually there's been some experiments done that when you actually take a PV pipe or some sort of like cylinder and put water in it and hold it up to the sun, there is a coloring that is actually there when it comes to water. And again, could it be so simple that really why is the sky blue? Because there's water up there? But when you read the Bible, right from the Genesis account, the firmament divided the waters from the waters. And I think that most people that believe in the Bible would have no problem with this. They say, sure, yeah, I believe there's water below us, there's water above us. And you get into the flood account, you've got three sources of water. I mean, this is what's really incredible about the flood. Not only is there, water, it's raining from the clouds. It's talking about two other sources of water. The fountains of the deep broke open, and the windows of heaven opened up, and water came down. I mean, there's a lot of water coming down to flood the entire earth, including the highest mountain. This is a lot of water. And again, even just the flood didn't make sense for me on a ball. But again, if you're in a basin or in a tub and filling up, this just makes sense. But again, water being above. Now, some people like Kent Hovind or other theories with the ice canopy theory that, in the flood, the water came down and that was, it. But again, there are places in the Bible after the flood that talk about the water above the firmament. There's still water up there. And yes, I mean, I honestly believe that why is the sky blue? Because there's great bodies of water up there. And again, I don't know the dimensions or, exactly what we're in. But again, I'm looking at the Bible. I'm looking at the scientific experimentation that's going on. I mean, there's some fantastic researchers, researching everything from even sundogs and moondogs. And they're finding that basically a sundog, and for your listeners, they don't understand what a sundog or a moondog, they can Google it. But basically, it's kind of the sun being the center point, and then you've got other sun reflections coming out, beyond the actual center of the sun. You've got different light sources coming out. It's a phenomenon that happens, and it's quite, common. And you can actually go looking for these all over, and you can even see them yourself. But again, the researchers have found that really, they put it in a very smooth glass bowl. And apparently, if they try any other materials, it doesn't work. This has to be a smooth glass, which kind of gets into the firmament and, what the construction of this thing is made of. But anyways, they took a lighter inside and they started putting it closer and further away from the inside of this like salad bowl. And they were creating the actual sundogs. Science has no absolute explanation for sundogs or moondogs. But again, could it be that the sun is being reflective off, the dome or off the firmament? Again, this is what the discoveries that they're starting to find. Now, nothing is conclusive. Again, this is all a pursuit for truth. This is a pursuit for real empirical science where it can be observed, it can be repeated. This is true science, and this is what's happening. And they're finding a lot of incredible discoveries when you're getting into light, bouncing off of something, but we've been told that we're in this endless universe. It's way up in space. We're told that the sun is 93 million miles away. Well, there's experiments being done all over the place to support the sun and the moon are a lot closer than what we've been told. So again, while they can bring in their math, for their ball or their model, we're finding a lot of science to support the fact that if you bring these things closer and you get more into this type of constructed worldview, the math is starting to work as well too. So I just think that this is a big delusion. I think that, some people say, well, why? Why in the world would they lie? And we've already got into that with, Satan's agenda and kind of trying to kill God and trying to create a reality that doesn't need a God. It can just be started with a bang and an endless universe with these planets that are balls that formed. But again, where's the end point? And I look at, prophecy as it's a third of the Bible, so it's very important. Anyone that discounts prophecy really doesn't understand the Bible in the sense that a third of the Bible is prophetic. So what is the great deception spoken of? A great deception will come into the earth and will deceive the whole earth, even the elect, even if that were possible. So I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, they talk about the one world religion, the one world government. But again, the one world religion, there's things that say, oh, it's a Catholic Church, or they say, oh, it's Islam, but I'm starting to think that could it be somewhat combined in the fact that really the one world religion right now in my eyes is science. And I'm not talking about the pure, true science. What I'm talking about is scientism. But everyone on earth not only believes this, they believe it as reality and as fact because it's been proven. So Lucifer had a long time not just to bring in a belief system, but he could deceive the world into fact. This is reality. Sorry, you want to debate it, you want to believe something, that's fine, but this is what's true. This is what's reality. So I'm thinking that part of the delusion could bring in a very scientific worldview type deception. And here we go with, aliens. And again, some people might laugh and think, oh, that's kind of funny. But if you look at Hollywood, even if you look at the astrophysicists, if you look at even Richard Dawkins admitting that if there is a creator, then it has to be some evolved life form, through Darwinian means that evolved very, very, highly beyond us, and at some point planted us, put their DNA into a monkey. But I do believe that basically this deception, when the Antichrist or when they come, when they give us the answers, all the answers, all these missing links will all be there. And again, we will be ready to accept it. And I say we as in kind of like the world, because again, it will all make sense to our brain. It makes sense. I mean, most people that believe in the heliocentric Big Bang universe, I think most people are coming to the understanding it's very plausible there's other life forms. And I think for Christians to start bringing that into the Bible, and I did for a long time, I'm like, okay, well, if there's other life forms, Satan didn't fall to their planet, so therefore they're not fallen. And Jesus only died once and once for all for us. Therefore, they don't need a savior. They're pro-God. So if they're pro-God and they walk and talk with the Lord, then God wouldn't allow them to come in and confuse us even more than we're already confused. It says that the fallen ones, the angels and humans, basically Lucifer and his fallen angels, are the ones to deceive us and to masquerade and do all these sort of things. So if there's other planets and other lives, well, they're all walking and talking with God. So I never had to worry about it, because if there was a alien, encounter or contact, and they were claiming all these things, I knew it was a deception anyways. It was a demonic lie. But you can see how the heliocentric Big Bang universe starts creating a belief system that, yes, it's very plausible. And if you look at Hollywood, most of these alien movies now are not invasions. They're here to help us. They're here to give us the answers. They're here to save the planet, because they've been watching us and we're so stupid we're going to blow up the planet, or we're going to destroy what we're on. So they're coming to intervene. They're coming to be our saviors. They're coming to give us the answers. And it says in the Bible, it says that when the Antichrist comes, he will come with all lying signs and wonders. And I mean, you have to think about this. To deceive the whole world, this is a grand deception. This is something so big, because we got special effects, and we're skeptical people. So in order to actually pull this off, you have to program. I mean, you have to have something in place for centuries. Kids, parents teaching their kids, and their kids teaching their kids. And again, this is one thing that no one questions, and it's getting more likely for most people that, you know what? Not only are there other life forms out there, quite possibly they're the ones that created us.
Well, they're definitely, I mean, the mindset that they've used through the TV and the academic world, the world is ripe for us to be deceived big time. And you see, the thing with myself, I teach historicism, and the Antichrist is here, and the Antichrist is the one that's in charge of the academic world. The academic world is run by the Universalists, Freemasons, and the Roman Catholic Church. And the papacy is the Antichrist right now. And they control, the Jesuits control these observatories all over the world, big observatories, and they control our CIA, and they control the European Union. I mean, we are being set up so as children of God, we need to turn to the Bible, and there's only one source of truth, and Robbie mentioned it, and John 14:6. There's only one truth, and that's Jesus Christ. And Robbie, we're coming down to about 7 minutes, but I wanted to ask a little question about yourself. I mean, there's other things that as a young man you could have, your YouTubers celebrate truth, but in other words, you've got to have a kind of a, you've got to be able to take a few hits, and I'm sure you've. Share with us a little bit of some of the pressure that's been put on you for making the stance that you have.
Oh, I mean, it's been unbelievable. I mean, I can focus on, the wonderful fruit that's being produced, and the people that are, opening the Bible for the first time in their life, or people that are completely, having a restored relationship with the Lord, and just amazing stories. But on the other side, there is a lot of attack. I mean, we've had attack from people within our family, friends, even people within the church. And again, for me, it's really important to have that patience, to have that grace, understand that really is it them or is it kind of the shock value of something that has just been so programmed in. No one wants to admit, that I was brainwashed or that, I was deluded or I was deceived. So I think for this subject matter, it is huge. I really, other than, convincing the world that the devil doesn't exist, I mean, it is one of the grand lies. I don't think there's anything bigger. This is really, really big, and it's hard for a lot of people to digest. And everyone is on their own walk. And while I think you had said at some point, I can classify someone, a great Christian brother or sister, in Christ, not a problem. If they never believe in the geocentric universe, I still believe that this isn't a salvational issue. I think it's very important. But again, it's important for me to show grace, to have patience. You brought up Kent Hovind. There's a lot of theories around there. But I think for most people, they shut down. It's not even that they want to actually spend time. It's almost like, look, I got all these projects on the go. Really, I'm going to devote my energy on something that's so incredibly insane and moronic as believing that the earth might not be a ball, or, that everything that, I learned in science and with the solar system, their pursuit has been attacking evolution. I just think for a lot of people, it's going to take some time. Some people get it quicker than others. Some people are going to take longer. But I think, if it's a trusted friend, if it's someone close in the family that approaches these people, I think then they'll start looking into it because they're like, well, wait a minute. But I don't think that they're just going to run and devote all these hours of research. If someone on YouTube with the username, Quest18614 says, hey, you really need to look into these verses. Well, I mean, they're getting bombarded by so many different things. And I'm talking about like leaders in the creation ministries or whatever. So, and God is raising up, kind of a second generation. You've got these people that are exposing evolution, but now there's kind of something moving along, exposing the whole heliocentric Copernican system. And again, while I believe it is the root and it stems right down through evolution and a lot more things, I'm just taking up the mantle. I'm doing what God's called me to do. And I know that there is going to be a lot of attack, a lot of ridicule. But Jesus said, the world hated me, therefore the world's going to hate you. And I think when even the creation ministries, when they started bringing out the fact that, evolution's not true, they were laughed at, they were ridiculed, they were mocked. I mean, even, they were mocked with people in churches. Their fellow brothers and sisters were saying, you're crazy. Of course God used evolution. It's all been proven. It's science. But they fought the good fight. They, saw it through. And they produced incredible materials for people to see that they could actually have confidence and stand on the fact scientifically that, there is a lot of truth to support a young Earth versus billions of years, or, that all of the discoveries they were finding, dinosaurs, that was a huge one. And there was a lot of great ministries going into, exposing the fact that, dinosaurs were like in the Bible, and that there were sediment tracks where there were dinosaur tracks and human tracks in the same level of sediment. Yet that all of a sudden goes missing. You don't see mainstream science talk about these discoveries because it really hurts their whole model of the whole Big Bang, heliocentric, Copernican, system. So again, we're going to press on. We're going to continue because again, there's work to be done, and people can reject it, laugh at it, mock it. But as more and more stuff comes forward, and people really have that quest and that desire, and if they seek truth, they'll find it.
Well, thanks, Robbie, because there was a part of me that would like to put this to the side and just got to go on like I never learned about, and I was never exposed to it. But you can't. All of a sudden, God's creation is much. You take man out of it, because what the heliocentric has given us is man's creation versus God's creation of geocentric. And I really appreciate you coming into the broadcast, Robbie, and I just want to give you all the encouragement, because I think this. Now we talked about geocentric, but heliocentric is the center. But understand, once you quit spinning, it takes a while. We've been on a merry-go-round and we're dizzy. Walt's still dizzy. And I think even Robbie's still getting his footing. After we got off that merry-go-round, and that is what the world, the academic world, and when God tells us to come out and be ye separate, it's not just the churches, it's to come out of the world. Come out of the world and be ye separate, and look up into the sky for the first time and say, it's blue. And the first time when you look at the moon, wow, it's lit up like a neon sign. So with that, Robbie, could you just give your last comments and where they can look at your work?
Sure thing. Yeah, anyone that's interested in the global lie or any of my other work, I've done quite a few different documentaries and I have about 70 videos on YouTube. You can go to Celebrate Truth. I also have a Facebook page as well, but that's where you can find my body of work.
Okay, with that, we're going to close. And I mean, like I said, I thank you for coming to the broadcast, Robbie, because sometimes I get a little bit weak-kneed. I'm 71, and sometimes we're talking about something that a lot of people will say, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Truth, and I learned this from what you said, yes, truth does matter. It does matter when we look into the sky and see a blue sky and why it's blue. I mean, it is important. When the one thing that I want to leave everybody today with is, is the center, our life as Bible-believing Christians, our center is Christ, to be centered in Christ. And the world and the heliocentric, the reason why I expound on it is because it's just simple. Heliocentric is man-centered. Geocentric is Christ-centered.